3 months of work, gone. Every single file, every spreadsheet, every presentation I'd built from scratch, deleted. And when I finally discovered who did it, they were already in my boss's office tearfully explaining how I had missed every deadline because I was incompetent. What they didn't know was that I had proof of exactly what they'd done.
I used to believe that if you worked hard enough, kept your head down, and delivered results, you'd be recognized for it. That's what I told myself when I took the junior analyst position at Meridian Consulting 3 years ago, and for a while, it seemed true. My name is Marcus, and by my second year, I'd been promoted to senior analyst. I was handling major client accounts, pulling in solid numbers, and building a reputation as someone who could be trusted with the complicated projects nobody else wanted to touch. Life was good. Then, Vanessa Chen joined the team. She came in as a lateral hire from a competitor, positioned at the same level as me. Our manager, David, made a big deal about how she was going to bring fresh perspectives and shake things up. At first, I was genuinely welcoming. More hands on deck meant we could tackle bigger projects, right? The problems started small. So small I almost didn't notice them. The first incident was a client meeting I'd been preparing for weeks. I walked into the conference room on Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, ready to present, and found the meeting already in progress. Vanessa was at the head of the table, clicking through slides that looked suspiciously similar to mine. "Marcus," David said, looking confused. "Vanessa said you couldn't make it. Something about a dentist appointment?" I stood there, frozen. I don't have a dentist appointment." Vanessa turned, her expression the picture of innocent confusion. "Oh no, did I misread your calendar? I could have sworn I saw it blocked off. I'm so sorry, I just didn't want to leave the client hanging." The client smiled politely. David waved me in. "Well, you're here now. Take a seat." I sat through the rest of the meeting watching Vanessa present analysis I had spent 2 weeks developing. She'd clearly accessed my files, restructured them slightly, and claimed them as her own. When I confronted her afterward, she gasped. "Marcus, I would never. I built that presentation from scratch. If our analysis looks similar, it's because we're both good at our jobs." She tilted her head sympathetically. "Maybe you should double-check your calendar settings. Wouldn't want this confusion happening again." I told myself it was a misunderstanding. I adjusted my calendar permissions and moved on. But it kept happening. Over the next 2 months, I was mysteriously left off email chains for projects I was leading. Meeting invites would arrive in my inbox 3 minutes before they started or after they'd already ended. Files I'd saved to the shared drive would be moved to folders I didn't have access to, then rediscovered by Vanessa days later. Each time, there was always a reasonable explanation. A system glitch, an oversight, an honest mistake. "You know how our servers can be," she'd say, shrugging. And David believed her every single time. See, Vanessa had this gift. She could make anyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. She remembered everyone's kids' names, brought in homemade cookies on Fridays, stayed late to help colleagues with their work. To everyone else, she was a team player, a rising star. To me, she was a surgical nightmare. The worst part, I started doubting myself. Maybe I was forgetting things. Maybe I wasn't as organized as I thought. Maybe I needed to be better. Then came the Henderson account. This was the big one, a 6-figure consulting contract that could make or break our quarterly numbers. David assigned it to me personally, and for 3 months I poured everything into it. Late nights, working weekends, skipping my sister's birthday dinner. I built comprehensive market analyses, financial projections, implementation timelines, everything the client would need, polished to perfection. The final presentation was scheduled on Thursday. I had everything saved on our shared drive, with backups in my personal folder. I was ready. On Wednesday afternoon, I opened my laptop to do one final review. The folder was empty. Not just the shared drive folder, my personal backup folder too. 3 months of work vanished like it had never existed. My chest tightened. My hands started shaking as I clicked through every possible location. The recycle bin, the archive, cloud backups, nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
I called IT in a panic. They pulled the server logs and found something strange. The files had been deleted systematically over the course of 3 days using my login credentials. But here's the thing. During those exact timestamps, I was in client meetings that Vanessa had scheduled for me, meetings that she knew would pull me away from my desk. She had my password. I never gave it to her, but 6 weeks earlier she'd asked to use my computer for just 1 minute while hers was updating. I typed it in for her and walked away to grab coffee. 60 seconds. That's all she needed. But IT didn't care about theories. All they saw was my credentials, my deleted files, my problem. And while I was still hyperventilating at my desk trying to figure out what to do, Vanessa was already in David's office. Through the glass walls, I watched her dab at her eyes with a tissue, while David's expression shifted from concern to disappointment, and his gaze drifted directly to me.
Okay, I need to stop here for a second because this is exactly where I thought my career was over. 3 months of work gone, my credentials on the deletion logs, and my saboteur already in there spinning her story. Tell me honestly, subscribe if you think I should have stormed into that office and defended myself right then. Or drop a comment telling me what you would have done, because I genuinely didn't know if anything could save me at this point. But stay with me, because what I did next changed everything.
I didn't storm into David's office. As much as every instinct screamed at me to burst through that door and defend myself, I knew how it would look. The angry employee, defensive and desperate. Vanessa would cry harder. David would believe her more. Instead, I did something that felt counterintuitive. I walked out of the building. I sat in my car in the parking garage and made myself breathe. Then I called the one person I knew could help, my buddy Trevor, who worked in cybersecurity for a tech firm downtown. I explained everything, the missing files, the suspicious deletions, the timestamps that didn't match my whereabouts. The company IT pulled server logs? Trevor asked. Yeah, but they only looked at who deleted the files, not the whole picture. Right, they wouldn't. Corporate IT usually doesn't dig deeper unless they're told to. He paused. But here's what they probably missed. Most systems log more than just deletion commands. They log access patterns, IP addresses, even physical location data if you've got badge readers synced to the network. My badge, every time I entered or left the building, it logged my location. If you were in meetings across the building during those deletions, Trevor continued, the badge data would prove you couldn't have been at your desk. Hope flickered in my chest for the first time in hours. I drove back to the office and went straight to HR, not to complain, not yet, but to request my badge access logs for the past month. Company policy allowed employees to review their own security data. The HR coordinator looked confused, but printed it out. The timestamps were beautiful. During the first deletion window, I'd badged in to conference room C on the 3rd floor. During the second, I was signed into the client meeting room on the 1st floor. During the third, I'd left the building entirely for a lunch meeting off-site. There was no physical way I could have been at my desk deleting files. I made copies. Then I went to IT and made a very specific request. I need to know if anyone else accessed my workstation during these time windows. I slid the timestamps across the desk. The IT technician, a guy named Jordan, who I'd always been friendly with, raised an eyebrow. You think someone used your computer while you were away? I know they did. He pulled the data, and there it was. Someone had logged into my workstation remotely using my credentials, but the session had originated from a different IP address, an IP address assigned to the desk directly across from mine. Vanessa's desk. I had her. But I needed more. I needed to understand why. I called in a favor from a colleague in HR, someone who owed me for covering her accounts during her maternity leave. Off the record, she confirmed what I'd suspected. The company was preparing to announce a new team lead position. Both Vanessa and I were on the short list. The announcement was supposed to come the Monday after my Henderson presentation. Vanessa wasn't just sabotaging me, she was eliminating the competition. I spent that entire night at home rebuilding what I could of the Henderson presentation, from email attachments, sent drafts, and handwritten notes. It wasn't complete, maybe 60% of what I had originally had, but it was something. The next morning, I walked into David's office before he'd even finished his coffee. I need 20 minutes, and I need you to actually listen." To his credit, David heard me out. I laid everything on his desk: the badge logs, the IP address records, the timeline showing how each glitch coincided with Vanessa pulling me away from my workspace. I showed him how the deleted files mapped to projects where she'd suddenly produced impressive work. His face went pale. "You're sure about this?" he asked. "I have digital forensic evidence that she accessed my computer remotely while I was in meetings she specifically scheduled. 3 separate occasions, 3 separate deletions. This wasn't a glitch. This was systematic sabotage." He called HR. Then he called legal. Then he called Vanessa. The meeting in the conference room lasted 2 hours. I wasn't present for most of it, but I heard later that when confronted with the IP logs, Vanessa tried to claim I'd framed her, that I'd somehow faked the evidence. But digital timestamps don't lie, and unlike me, she didn't have badge data proving she was elsewhere. She was terminated that afternoon. No severance. The company's legal team made it clear they were considering pressing charges for corporate sabotage, though I never heard if they actually followed through. As for me, David apologized, genuinely apologized, for not seeing what was happening sooner. I presented what remained of the Henderson analysis the following week. The client appreciated the transparency about what had happened, and we ended up landing the contract anyway. 2 months later, I got the team lead position. But here's the thing that still haunts me. If I hadn't been paranoid enough to request those badge logs, if Trevor hadn't known what questions to ask, if I hadn't had that one friendly contact in HR, Vanessa would have succeeded. I'd have been fired for incompetence, and she'd be sitting in my chair right now. I learned something crucial from that experience. Documentation isn't just about being organized. It's about protecting yourself from people who smile at you while setting fires in your wake. I save everything now. Every email, every meeting confirmation, every project backup. Multiple locations, multiple formats. Because some coworkers aren't just difficult, they're dangerous.
Thanks for sticking with me through this one. If you've ever dealt with a workplace saboteur, someone who smiled in your face while destroying everything you built, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Hit that like button if this resonated with you, and subscribe if you want to hear more workplace nightmare stories. Got your own HR horror story you want to share? Drop it in the comments or send it my way. Your story might be the next one I feature. Until next time, protect yourself out there.